Hello and welcome to this short little webinar on tracking your progress when you're studying for exams. When you have a lot to study for a big exam, as I know many of you do, it can be quite a task in and of itself just to keep track of your progress against all the different topics. Some of my clients have literally hundreds of rows worth of topics and subtopics and different activities and papers to read and all sorts of things. Um, how do you keep track of all that? Well, the way most people approach it is they might have a little table like this. So they might say, well, okay, here are all my topics. I need to go over everything for the first time, and then the second time, the third time. They're just kind of ticking each one off as they go. Or perhaps they might even include a little date. They're writing the date which they covered that topic. Now, there's a couple of problems with this strategy. Firstly, it's incredibly overwhelming. And that idea of just the sheer number of rows you've got, but then multiplied by, I've seen some clients come to me with 4 or 5 columns of repetitions. And this is, of course, based on the science of spaced repetition. This is something we want to be doing. Um, we want to be revisiting material, but when we kind of lay it out like this, it becomes incredibly overwhelming to do that, particularly, as I say, when we've just got a huge volume of topics to learn for particularly large exams. It may even be completely impractical or impossible. There just isn't the hours in the day, in the time you've got to go through every single topic you've got, 3, 4, 5, or however many columns you've got. And then that makes you just feel inadequate because you haven't had time to get through what you set out to do, what you think you should do. And then you just feel wretched about yourself. And then even if it was possible to get through everything 3, 4, 5 times, that might not necessarily be an effective use of your time. I think it's very rare that we need to give equal attention to every single topic. Some topics we need to give more attention to because they come up more often, or they're worth more marks, or they're bigger topics, or we're just weaker on them. We don't do so well on those topics. So I present to you a slightly modified version of this tracking strategy that I sort of created slightly through accident through teaching conversations with coaching clients over the past years, and recently I've kind of been teaching it quite a lot, and I've been finding it works really well for people, so I thought I'd share it with you all today. So the same principle, you have all your topics laid out as rows. You still have columns. You notice I might have tweaked the column titles slightly to emphasize, we're going through and testing ourselves on the topics. That is at the heart of spaced retrieval practice. We want to be doing retrieval practice, testing yourself. I have lots of material on that, so feel free to reply to this email if you don't know about retrieval practice and want to learn. I will assume many of you are familiar with that idea. You might also know it as active recall. Same idea. But this idea that testing on the material is at the heart of effective learning. So the kind of column headers are just a little reminder of that. But then what you do, it's a little bit like what you do with the previous version, in that as you get to the topics, you write in this case, I'm writing in the date I studied that topic. But here I'm also giving myself a rating. How did that test go? So perhaps I color code. In this case, red would mean that topic hasn't gone very well. Maybe I got less than half of the questions I was trying right before I had to look at the answers. Then I might use amber for topics that go a bit better, green for topics where I'm getting like maybe 80% plus. This would work just as well for doing practice questions and numerical quantitative type content as if you're testing yourself on flashcards. Then what you do, test round 2, you just focus on the red or maybe the amber topics. So you don't go through everything a second time. And then the third round, maybe you just go through the things that are still red. Now, of course, all this topic by topic work. This should be building towards full past paper, realistic exam practice. In the case of most students that have these kind of exams to prepare for, preferably under time conditions. So I've included that as a little reminder. Here's an example of this strategy in action for a real client. This was real client data. In this case, I'm illustrating a slightly different spin on it, where rather than color coding, we're just doing numerical ratings. So 1 to 5, with 5 being the topic went well, and 1 being the topic did not go at all well. And you can see what's happened here. The second round, we've prioritized those two topics where we got a rate the lowest rating, so ones and twos. Then, of course, the beauty of this is you can adapt how far you go with your second round to how long you've got. So if you're running out of time, you might only do those two and then stop. But if you've got more time, you can then prioritize. You can go through and do the threes and then the fours and then finally the fives. So you're always prioritizing your time on your weakest areas and using the time that you do have to best effect.